This is one of the craziest examples of woke insanity I've ever seen. The Daily Mail reports that an elderly California woman aged 90 was fired from her volunteering position of 60 years at an MS nonprofit because she did not understand pronouns despite previously winning multiple awards. The woman, named Fran Itkoff, age 90, says she was forced to step down from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society because she did not understand what pronouns meant. Itkoff had volunteered for the nonprofit support group for multiple sclerosis patients for 60 years. An email from the group accused her of violating the MS Society's diversity, equity, and inclusion guidelines. Here's a clip from an interview with Libs of TikTok that this woman did, where she explains what happens and how what sounds like just basic confusion about a pronoun thing that was unfamiliar to her led to a really drastic and radical response of pushing her out of the organization entirely. Take a listen.
My husband had MS, and to keep busy, he took over this Long Beach Lakewood MS support group. And I helped him, of course, all the time. And when he passed away, which is 20 years ago, I decided to keep the group going because everyone wanted to continue it.
How many years were you involved with the MS Society?
About 60 years.
6D with the zero.
60. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
My husband, and then I took over, I kept it going, and when he passed away.
So your husband was running this organization to help and support MS patients, and you were in volunteer with the MS Society. You've been doing this for 60 years.
Yes.
And then you took over when your husband passed away. And then recently you had some kind of interaction with a representative from the MS Society where she asked you to use your pronouns. So when she first asked you that, I mean, what was your reaction? What was your response?
I was confused. I didn't know what it was, what it meant. And I'd seen it on a couple of letters that had come in after the person's name. They had the pronouns, but I didn't know what that meant. And so finally, when I was talking to her, I thought, I'll ask, what does it mean? And, let her tell me. And so she said it meant that they were all inclusive, which didn't make sense to me because it sounds like you're
labeling
for females and not males if you're just putting in she, her.
She said that she was just asking her what it meant to have a conversation. So as a 90-year-old who didn't know what it meant, she's not street savvy to find out what it meant.
Yeah.
And when she said that they were required to use it to be inclusive, and my mom was saying that we've always been, the MS Society as a whole and the Long Beach group has just always been inclusive.
A few days later, it was on a Friday at, was it 4:58?
At 4:58, which we thought was odd, but anyway.
At the end of the day, end of the week, I got an email from her saying that they were sorry, but they had to ask me to step down as a volunteer for the MS Society.
And the reason being is that you're not inclusive enough.
The verbiage she said was that she didn't abide by their diversity, equity, and inclusion. So they have to ask her to step down, and she's can't be a part of the MS Society as a volunteer, which to me is ironic because they're saying they're being inclusive, but yet they're excluding a 90-year-old disabled woman who volunteers for over 60 years, and literally the sole purpose is to help the MS patients and find a cure. And
that's what we're there for.
Keep helping with volunteering as much as she can, which has literally been her whole life. That's literally all she does. So
yeah.
So this story is really crazy, but the crazy part is that the organization initially stood by it despite all the public outrage. More reporting from the Daily Mail says here that the organization came under fire and was accused of ageism, but doubled down amid the backlash, saying its staff acted with the best of intentions. Recently, a volunteer, Fran Itkoff, was asked to step away from her role because of statements that were viewed as not aligning with our policy of inclusion, the nonprofit said on Thursday in a statement. Fran has been a valued member of our volunteer team for more than 60 years. We believe that our staff acted with the best of intentions and did their best to navigate a challenging issue. As an organization, we are in continued conversation about assuring that our diversity, equity, and inclusion policies evolve in service of our mission, and we will reach out to Fran in service of this goal. When I saw that they were sticking to this, man, I thought I was being pranked. Like, this sounds like a Babylon Bee headline, a parody headline, that a 90-year-old woman was kicked out of an organization, a charitable organization, that her husband had suffered the disease. She'd volunteered there for 60 years, and they booted her because she didn't understand pronouns in your email signature. What? How is that open to diversity and inclusion? What you're literally doing is excluding someone from an older generation because they don't quite understand new concepts they're not familiar with. Thankfully, now they have actually apologized and reversed course. More reporting from the Daily Mail, who was really all over this story here. They said, recently, we asked Fran to step down from her role as a group leader because of statements made that we viewed as not aligning with our recently implemented diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. The statement read, "We realize now that we made a mistake and we should have had more conversations with Fran before making this decision. We apologized to Fran directly and reached out to her to find a way to continue the work together." So this initial story just struck me as a really grotesque injustice. It demonstrated just how extremely woke people, the kind of people that apparently run these nonprofits, just lack any sort of empathy or understanding for different people from different walks of life or times. It's also just more proof of how the woke mindset just demands conformity and has to exile anybody who questions things or isn't 100% aligned. On one hand, I am glad that they reversed course, but I'm pretty skeptical that it was any sort of genuine reversal, and I more so just think it was because they got so much public backlash and scrutiny. I don't think they ever apologize or reverse course if this story doesn't go absolutely gangbusters viral. And unfortunately, people with this kind of intolerant, woke mindset run many of our institutions and nonprofits and businesses and schools and other things these days. I'm sure incidents that are kind of similar to this are happening all the time and will happen many times, but never get spotlighted or get the same swell of public support or outrage, and will never be corrected, and the injustice will never be righted. All this, just to me, is another reminder of the perversity of the DEI movement, the diversity, equity, and inclusion activism that's become so popular in so much of corporate America and so many other walks of American life. It claims to be about inclusion, but in practice it's most often about inculcating and perpetuating a left-wing ideology and crushing anyone who dissents, even if that means being remarkably uninclusive. It's also just bizarre and unethical that an MS charity, a charity that's supposed to support people who struggle with a disease, would prioritize political ideology and social justice activism over its actual mission of helping people affected by an illness.